Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the podcast on the Sicha for Project Likutei Sichas. Today we are discussing about a Sicha from Likutei Sichas Chelek Tes. Sicha is Re'eh, Parshas Re'eh, the first Sicha. And I saw a title for this Sicha titled A Stairway to Heaven. I'm not sure if certainly we're talking about stairways, and we're talking about um, different stages, different times of how our Avodas Hashem is represented. Um, what the depth of it is, how personal it is, how external, and what we're involved with in the world, and how that plays into our Avodas Hashem. But before we get into it on a technical level, let's ask Moshe, Rabbi Gurari, to please just set the stage with the Rambam. What are we talking about? What's the background? What's the context? And then we'll dive right in.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I think that it's actually a very straightforward Sicha. There's two basic questions, and we'll talk about both of them. But the Rambam teaches us that the Beis HaMikdash was built on an incline, which means to say is that you'd walk in, the whole Beis HaMikdash was on a mountain. So it was built along with a mountain. You'd walk in, you'd go up some steps, you'd walk further, you'd go up some steps. I'm purposely not going into exactly where those steps were, but the idea is as you walked from the main gate through the Beis HaMikdash, every once in a while you're going up steps to a higher physical elevation. The Mishkan, on the other hand, the Mishkan, which is what was with Yidden in the Midbar, that was built b'mishar. It was built on one flat plane. And ultimately, the Rebbe asks the question, why? Especially since the Rambam holds that the two are very interconnected. They both are fulfilling the same mitzvah, and one Beis HaMikdash follows and continues the mitzvah of the Mishkan. Why would they be different here? And the ultimate point that Rebbe makes is that the Mishkan, it didn't affect the floor. The ground of the Mishkan did not become holy. In the Beis HaMikdash, the pasuk says, "Hamakim asher yivchar Hashem," the physical space became holy, as the Rambam says in other places that once the Beis HaMikdash became holy, that makom is holy for eternity. Even during this time where we don't have the actual building standing there, the makom itself is holy. And based on that, the Rebbe answers the question that if the makom is holy, then as the makom becomes holier, for example, the Ezras Kayanim was holier than the Ezras Nashim, the Heichal was holier than the Ezras Kayanim. So as you go to a spiritually holier space, the actual ground that you're on is elevated more, indicating that it's holier. So only in the Beis HaMikdash, where the makom, the physical space, was changed and was holy, it actually becomes higher and higher as it gets holier and holier. Whereas in the Mishkan, because the makom itself wasn't changed, as the proof for that is that as it moved to the next place, the original makom where it was did not retain any holiness. Therefore, the makom is not changed based on the various different spaces in the Mishkan, and it's all on the same level. Let's pause here and let's analyze this for a bit, and then let's see if we'll discuss the Kodesh HaKadoshim as well. Shmuley.
So it's an interesting thing because, it comes to places, and I think people have like an association with memories and nostalgia and meaning. You make meaning, interconnection to the places that you're at. For some people, especially now as camp is wrapping up, you sort of interconnect your the spaces of where you were, and then growing up in Kalakaska, let's say, the A-frame and different things, like back in the as childhood memories. So the spaces become significant, and they're part of the journey, if you will. They're part of the experience. And what you see here is an interesting dynamic, and just looking at the two types of spiritual journeys, the two types of Avodas Hashem that you have, and contrasting the Mishkan to the Mikdash, is that there's a category of life, there's a category of history, there's a category that we're talking about here in the Rambam, where the Avodas Hashem is not connected to those spaces and they get forgotten about. I mean, when was the last time anybody went and visited those spaces to daven there? They don't become shrines, they don't become holy places, they don't become, anything. For the most part, they're besides learnt about where they stopped and what the story is, they're pretty much forgotten about. Um, so, yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing, and contrast that to the most extreme level of spiritual connection to the outer wall of the destroyed Beis Hamikdash, and how that is like to touch the stone, to touch, to be at that moment, and the inspiration that you feel just being there in that place, and how many people go there, and how special it was when Harabayas was back in the hands of the Jewish people, and so on and so forth. It's just such a vast contrast to the um, the story of connection, and spiritual journey, how different it is. Just is very interesting. And Yisrael, maybe you want to share a little about that.
I mean, I'm look, I'm, something that's obvious, but so glaring to me that so like it's like such a simple lesson, I would say, from this. Like sometimes you talk about the simple things, the difference between the Mishkan, where you said the Mishkan and the Migdash being temporary versus permanent. So there's things in our life or times in our life when, I mean, we can talk about this a lot, but it's just simply put, when you're younger and things are more temporary, and that's one, yeah, I mean, it's one way of your connection to Hashem and growing. But as you grow and your life becomes more permanent, whether it's the place you live, or Hashem, family you have, the whatever, you're more permanent. How it should affect the Gashmias in your life it should show what's more holy and what's less holy. It should be expressed. That you walk into a Yiddish home, that everyone wanted to buy small svarim for a reason. That you should walk into a home. This is my permanent space. What's on the elevated space? In other words, it has to physically be seen that this is a Yiddish home, which is, where is the focus, where is the beauty in the Sfarim, and not specifically in anything else. And and whatever it is, what I mean, when you go on a family vacation about summer, where's the, of course, so we're giving our families this great time, and we're giving them everything else, but where are we investing? There should be mileage, there should be steps, it should be very clearly defined that the ruchnius and the holiness and the spirituality is affecting our journey, our makim kavua, in a real way. It's not just passing through. I mean, I could talk a lot about this. I think it's so obvious, but it's so beautiful, is that we should invest simply to make the makim kavua in our life, whatever it may be, and make sure that the holy parts are higher, literally more high. My, like physically says, most I'm sure has what to say about this, but I'm just sort of starting this setting. That's what you were making me think as you were talking, Shmuley.
I think there's a concept of compartmentalizing, especially sometimes when we don't have the kind of job that is 9 to 5, and we know that this is when I go to shul, this is when I go to work, and this is when I come home, and our whole life is shlichus or didibitachtenim, I'm not, I mean to say that we don't do other things, but I'm saying, like, there's no time where you could say, okay, this is this time and this is that time. To compartmentalize and to know that there's different parts of my life. There's my shlichus, there's my family, there's me. I have to learn. I have to take care of myself. I have to exercise, whatever it might be, to be able to compartmentalize and know that it's not like parts of my life bygone, which Muli was talking about, and very powerfully, that there's certain things that we can leave in the past. In other words, we took something from it, but it doesn't have to come with us. There's certain things that the makim, the actual physicality of it, the lessons could come with us, but the physicality of it could remain behind. Some things are best left bygone. But then there's the things that are in my life right now, and to mix it all together and say, it says, Ein Kedusha, right now, this is who I am, and this is what happens. Yes, sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm there. It's actually confusing, and it's also very difficult to convey to our kids when they don't know, what's really important and what's just being done in order for something else. And the compartmentalization of, there's me, there's my wife, or my husband. There's my family. There's my shlichus. There's other things, my friends. There's my whatever it might be that I have going on in my life, and I have to know very clearly what's at the beginning of it. The beginning meaning the lower levels. What are on the higher levels, and to not confuse myself and to say, well, this is I'm a shliach of the Rebbe. I'm just going to do this as an example, and shlichus is more important than anything else, and at whatever price. And that would be if the whole Beis Hamikdash was on a misher, and that would be very, very confusing. And to be able to know and compartmentalize, what's where, and and I'm just saying what you started saying, Yisrael. I'm just sort of putting it in my ideas.
No, I like it. I didn't stop till you were saying is that there's different levels in the Beis Hamikdash, physical levels, and in your life there has to be. It can't just be one. I like that line at the end. It's not one big fabring. It's not one big flat thing and everything is equal. No. It's you walk in and it's like you go up and up, and I like that. Yeah.
I think the imagery of the steps in the Mishkan. I know in the English translation that we had on the website from Sichas in English, they had a diagram where you look at a drawing, and where you start goes up a little, up a little, up a little. When you look at it like that and you say, let me take all the parts of my life and let me put them into these spaces. Okay, this will go here. This will go here. This is here. This is and it really. All of a sudden, I have a question. Should I do this or should I do that? Should I go here? Should I go there? And it depends. If it's on the top level, it comes first. It's most important, and it really structures us to be able to be in the right place at the right time of our own life, doing the right thing. So that was my thought on on the stairs, on the spaces of the holiness.
Just jump in to piggyback of what you're saying in other language. It's intentional living, and having intent really in all those spaces, and that structure of those levels, not like you said, not mixing them together, but really intentionally saying this is placed here and this is placed here. It's very healthy to recognize the effects of those actions and what you're doing and why you're doing, and interconnecting to the Sicha. I mean, then you're having a deeper effect on deeper levels of the inanimate, of the life around you, of the vegetation, of your and you could interpret that and whatever that means to you and what you're doing, and even further on people. But it all stems from a seder. It all stems from a structure in our head, in our heart, in our minds, in our life, in our family, in our work, in our communities. And the Beis Hamikdash and the way it's structured is indicating that there's a seder of higher or lower. There's intentional living. There's a purpose of what you're doing. Every animal that's brought is part of a story. Everything that's done is part of a story. Everything that you're doing has a function, and that you have to do upstairs. This you could do downstairs. This you do to the left. This you do to the right. It's not just like you said, one big fabrengen. So it's really.
I have to say, this is very personal for me, and it said like, though, because I think of like living a flat life, of like one life. I love that line of like it's one big. It's everything's like it's all mixed together. There's no structure. Versus structure to me personally gets identified in my cell phone use, on my iPhone use. Is that like the phone to me is what destroys all structure. It's like I'm doing one thing and suddenly I'm working. I'm working. I'm watching the news. I'm middle of this. I'm middle of that. It's like there's no state about middle of living sichas, and someone calls me and it's like it's being and real. We said intentional living is putting your phone away, and knowing that there's levels in life when I'm learning, and that's my space. I'm on the top of the ladder. I shouldn't mix anything below into that space right now. And when I'm doing something that's lower and that's important, leave it at that place and be there. Don't just make it one big happy fabrengen. Anyway, it's good. Very good.
I want to add one nakuda to this, and that is that whenever you're making that structure, it's not like the Beis Hamikdash could operate just with a kodesh or just with the Ezras Kohanim. It needed a chayil and it needed an azara, which means to say a person could say, first to have vacation. Who needs vacation? I'm just throwing it as an example of something
Right.
that might be seen by some as sort of the bottom, the less important thing. And I'm not taking a position on that. But I'm saying a person might say that, and or something else, going to the restaurant to eat, whatever it is. You might say, who needs it? Who needs it? Where's the kedusha in it? And the answer is no. Even the things that have less kedusha are necessary. They're necessary in order for you to be able to go up the steps. You have to be on the bottom of the steps in order for you to have a fully rich life and a life that the quote-unquote holy parts are fully enhanced and reach their potential is when you allow for all the other parts in your life, upon those that are mutter al pitera, to be in your life, it's just in the right place. They're supposed to be there as long as they're in the right place. I think that's what intentional living means. At least the way I'm interpreting that. Don't get rid of certain things. Just put them where they belong, and then they become vital to the overall mission.
It's like the saying, if you're everything to everyone, you're nothing to nobody. So it's really about delegation within your own life and to the people around you, and having a seder v'hadraga, which is really powerful. But that brings us to the bigger question and the bigger juice in the Sicha, the one half paragraph that we cannot hold ourselves back from, at least me. And we must jump into it. And anybody who didn't take the time out to if you didn't learn the Sicha, you should learn it. But there's just so much to unpack about this one paragraph, one piece of a paragraph. But just to introduce the question, so we just talked about Seder and Hadraga and levels and organize and you go up a step. Now you're in a higher level of Kedusha. And now I'm doing this and everything is organized up in Kedusha and Seder. And it's all wonderful. Then the Rebbe asks the question, okay, makes sense. So then it would make sense that the Kodesh HaKadoshim, holiest place of all, should be at the minimum a couple steps higher than the Kodesh, a couple steps higher, maybe even more. I mean, I don't know, So how is it make sense, according to everything we just established, that there is no step up to the Kodesh HaKadoshim? It's on par, it's on level. So first of all, it's just such a great question. But to answer it, I'll just take a few words from the actual words of the Sicha, and then I guess we'll jump around and let everybody explain how they personalize and take this home, and really, which is the point of this podcast, is what does it mean to you and how do you take it home? But the Rebbe says that yeah, that's true. There's that levels of spirituality, of kedusha, and everything else. But when you're coming to such a level of kedusha, which is be'en areich, which means we're not talking about a relevance, we're talking about an essence, higher than up, above, and below. We're talking about a truth here. It's not shaykh, the Rebbe says. This is nit shaykh as das soll sich ausdrücken. It's not possible to measure or express such a level in atzol trep. A few steps are going to be the measurement to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Milas, a few steps. In Geva Madu de Mugbo, a step or an elevation, which at the end of the day you could take a measure tape to it. You cannot have a physical measurement up into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. There's nothing you're going to bring me and say, look, when I learned that, I was like, there's nothing you're going to show me. How many dollar bills, how many cottages, I don't know, anything Gashmi that you're going to show me that's going to make you worth something. And even to bring it into shluchus, if I'm allowed to, I feel there's a certain measurement sometimes in shluchus where buildings become a measurement. You built a building, you're building a building. Oh, how big is the building? How many square feet is it? And how it is, and how much did it cost, and everything else, and whatever. Of course, it's beautiful and the things you could do with it. But is that a measurement? Is that a real measurement for anything? Is there something physical that can measure the truth? That can measure our soul, that can measure our purpose in this world, our iskashus, our connection, our ruchnius, our life? There's nothing. Let's not get carried away with a trep, with one step of gashmius. It's just mind-boggling. Anyway, I'll turn it over to you guys to share a little bit. It just blows my mind.
Just for pshat, like to sort of enhance pshat in the Sicha or explain pshat in the Sicha, I have one line. I was learning the Sicha with my wife. We were learning it together. And I said, I noticed in the parentheses where the Rebbe in the question writes in parentheses, Viribui Milas, like why aren't there steps and a lot of steps? And I said, I think that answers the question. The question is, Why are there no steps to the Kiddush HaKadoshim? The answer is, how many steps? How many steps can you put to the Kiddush HaKadoshim? 5, 6, 100, 5,000. There's no steps to infinity. In the question, a lot of times in the Sichas, in the question, the Rebbe hints to the answer, or even tells you the answer without you realizing it. There are no steps to the Kiddush HaKadoshim. Taking it to the person and using the barometer we were using before about the compartmentalization. As much as we need to compartmentalize in our life, we have to remember that any of those compartments do not define the sum total of my life. And not only the sum total of my life, but the potential of where I can go because of who I am at my core. So yes, I have all these parts of my life, and sometimes they might seem so limiting to me. I only have this. I only got this done. I only did this. Will I ever? And the Kiddush HaKadoshim is telling me that there's so much more to me, if not in reality, at least in potential, that I should never define myself by those compartments.
I'll just end off of here. It's absolutely beautiful, especially the build-up that we had to appreciate this. This is classic Rebbe. And the beginning of the Sicha, he's pushing in one direction, is get your life in order, get your life in structure, have a plan, figure it out. You walk into somebody's house, if you Baruch Hashem is successful, Begashus, you have a lot of money, make sure your house, make sure the Kedusha is focused, make sure that everybody knows that you're a Chassidish Yid, that you're a Yid who cares about not just about vacations and that, but also cares about your family, cares about Torah, cares about whatever, right? Structure your life, make a seder ba'adraga, and at the end of it all, put it all to bed, because it all means nothing. When you come to the top, when you're really connected, it's all nothing. And when you have that moment in the day, that the bottom line is Eino Milvadoi, then it literally means nothing to me. Not what the Gashris have, and not even the Ruchis have, nothing. All it means to me is, am I connected to the Eibush or not? Am I one or not? Right? I mean, the Kodesh HaKadoshim represents. I'll say it another way. Kodesh HaKadoshim represents the Chiddush B'Nefesh, right? The essence of a Yid, right? Which is, even when a Yid sins, it's always with Hashem. So our whole life, we're, even on my shlichus, right? I'm dealing with, like, how can I bring, structure my whole Chabad house in order to figure out how more Yidden can put mezuzahs and tefillin and learn Torah and come to Shabbos, right? It's a whole system built in my life. And then there's putting it all away and realizing every year, no matter who they are, what they are fully connected. They're there. It's one equal flat line. There's no difference between the holiest and the unholy, whatever we call it, the whole Chitzah. It means nothing. That every one opportunity we have to connect to one person with one mitzvah, that's all it is. It's like you said so beautifully, the building and the finances and it's nothing. And this is really the secret of Chassidus, of what the Rebbe gave us, is that one opportunity we have could be. I just want to share. I got a message from a shliach, and he sent me a picture and said, "Look what you've done." And I said, "I don't know. I don't recognize this guy." He said, This guy was driving through Colorado with his friend on a road trip. And whatever, they were convinced they have to go to Chabad because they know the other kind of shliach, whatever. And to make a long story short, today the Kai is Shem Shabbos. He's because of this Friday night in our Chabad house one time. How would I recognize him? You know what I mean? For him, it'll change his life, right? So you build structures and systems and plans and hire people. Well, you know what you're talking about. The whole thing. Nothing. We had a Shabbos dinner. A Yid came. It was over. Kodesh HaKadoshim, it's all equal. It's all flat. It's all the same. So to me, it's personal to my shluchas, but it's personal to my life as well. Not to get too caught up in the seder and the structure, but just to be connected. Anyway, that's my l'chaim for the day.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I think just to sort of wrap it all up together, it's really a question of what defines us at the end of the day, what defines the things that we do, and what defines the values that we have. And it really, really gives us opportunity to be a little different, to connect to something far higher, where on the one hand we live in Elam Hazeh and we could be CEOs and we could have cars and have to have a lease and have a building and have a payment plan and everything else. And at the same moment, in the same conversation, it all is meaningless, legabe, the essence and the truth of who we know, what we're doing here, and what's the Kiddush HaKadoshim of ourselves, of our family, and of another Yid, and our mission in this world. It's just Unbelievable.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon. Have a wonderful day and good Shabbos.